So let's talk about The Last of Us Part 3. Now, during December 2022, The Last of Us Part 3 was rumoured to be in production at Naughty Dog, and this was a heavy rumour. It was being reported on by many gaming outlets, and on January 1st, the co-president of Naughty Dog and the creator of The Last of Us series, Neil Druckmann, tweeted a New Year tweet that read, after the New Year's greeting, "P.S. Be wary of insider info, much of it is false." This definitely seemed to be in response of The Last of Us Part 3 rumours being in production at Naughty Dog. And by production I mean a whiteboarding stage, where devs are in a room writing ideas and stories and plot lines and mechanics and what they kind of want to see in the game on a whiteboard, and seeing if they want to throw any of that into the final product or start developing on it, and different ideas and all that kind of stuff. However, there has been an outline written for The Last of Us Part 3. From VGC, Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has seemingly hinted at plans for a third entry in its The Last of Us series. Series director and co-writer Druckmann told The Hollywood Reporter, "I think there's more story to tell." Whereas also in 2021, Neil Druckmann stated that he had a story outline written on a piece of paper or a napkin of what will happen in The Last of Us Part 3. On the Script Apart podcast back in 2021, Druckmann explained that he and co-writer Haley Gross have written an outline for a story. Druckmann stated at the time that Naughty Dog is not making the game yet, but he has hopes that their idea can see the light of day eventually. He added that the story outline for Part 3, which was written, explores a little bit about what happens after The Last of Us Part 2. Now, with The Last of Us Part 2's ending, there were still threads left open. With Tommy's character, I feel like he needs a proper ending, and that wasn't really an ending, and it kind of hinted at a different story arc for Tommy going into The Last of Us Part 3, a story arc similar to Ellie's with revenge and perhaps no redemption, whereas Ellie in Part 2 did find some peace with not carrying out the killing of Abby. And I think a Part 3 story could go into the direction of not Ellie and Joel like in the first one, but Ellie and Tommy, which I would really love. And you could even have part of the game with Abby and Lev, where Lev is slightly older now and Abby is like maybe not a veteran, but you know, she's had months or years with the Fireflies at this point, and finally there's a vaccine and they kind of need Ellie's help and stuff like that. You know, it kind of like goes hand in hand with The Last of Us Part 2 story. Now, in regards to The Last of Us Part 3 in TV show form, Neil Druckmann says, "We have no plans to tell any stories beyond adapting the games," he told THR. So what Neil Druckmann is saying here is we will not be seeing a season where they show what happens after The Last of Us Part 1, like Joel and Ellie adventures right after Part 1 ends, but rather it seems Season 2 will be an adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2, with some changes as they are doing with Part 1. Now, in regards to Part 3 for Season 3, it is possible that we could see the season adapted before the game. Now, I 80% doubt that will happen, but with the already outstanding reviews for the show, getting before its TV debut, this show could be a huge hit and may set the table for Druckmann to create The Last of Us Part 3 before the game. And that doesn't sound crazy at all to me, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this announcement came. I don't know if I'd want to watch that. And Neil Druckmann says, we're doing the TV show first, we're doing Part 3 in TV show form, and this will be the same as The Last of Us Part 3 game. So the show season of Part 3 comes before the game. I don't think I would want to do that. I would want to play Part 3 as a video game first, rather than watching it on this TV show. There could also be a potential spin-off series to expand the world of The Last of Us, which I would love to see personally. This is also being done with The Last of Us Factions being an expansion of The Last of Us universe. So what could we see from Naughty Dog this year? Now, I wanted to make a separate video on Naughty Dog's 2023 plans, but I think I'll go through a lot of it right here. So last year during the Summer Game Fest, Neil Druckmann revealed more information of Faction, which will be revealed in 2023, where we could see even a potential announcement of the game for the game to arrive also in 2023, alongside revealing a new IP Naughty Dog is working on. Not the actual name of the IP, but just the fact that they are working on something brand new that isn't Uncharted or The Last of Us. Now on January 13, Neil Druckmann has claimed in a recent interview that the entitled Last of Us multiplayer project is the most ambitious project that Naughty Dog has ever worked on. Now from The Gamer, Druckmann said, "You know, there is a Last of Us multiplayer project that we've been working on for a long time, since even before The Last of Us Part 2 shipped. That's the most ambitious project we've ever done, expanding the world even further, continuing to tell a story, but in a multiplayer space. I won't say too much about that." Now, we have no details on what this game will be, whether it's a map-based team deathmatch shooter like Call of Duty, or with different game modes, or a battle royale, or a Tarkov style game. I don't know if we would get something like how, you know, The Day Before is being advertised as a kind of Division open world game. I would absolutely love that if this is the open world Last of Us game and it's an MMO style. I don't know if this game would be that, but because I think this is supposed to be a kind of a spiritual successor to the original Last of Us faction, so I think it's going to be more like a team death Call of Duty kind of, you know how they have different game modes on different maps, or it could even take the battle royale route, but we're not 100% sure. We can't really see. I don't think there has been any leaks on what this game mode will be, but that's just kind of my speculation there. This game is big and has taken Naughty Dog an extremely long time to develop. Now, assets of this game could be used in The Last of Us Part 3, along with some crossover between characters and factions within the story, which I think would be cool to see, especially if The Last of Us Part 3 goes open world, which I made a video about, which I'll leave in the comments and description. And it seems like Neil Druckmann is also very excited of the course about his next game. Druckmann then teases another Naughty Dog game that's in development, saying, "There's another project that I will not say anything about that's beyond that we're very much excited for." Now with the New Year's tweet, it seems like Naughty Dog's next game is not The Last of Us Part 3, as it seemed like he kind of tried to deny those rumors that it was in development or pre-production stage at Naughty Dog, or the fact that it's not an Uncharted 5 game, as reports suggest that the next Uncharted game will be developed by a different PlayStation Studios. It is also a lot for the team at Naughty Dog to just go straight to The Last of Us Part 3 after the release of Part 2, Part 1 remake, the TV show, and then factions. And there's also a rumor of The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut, or like a PS5 version that's in development, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. I think it's very likely we will see Part 3 after the release of this new IP, which I am very excited for, and hopefully it's a story that we love and care for, and we have amazing characters as we love and care for the Uncharted series, The Last of Us, and even Jack and Daxter, which I have not forgotten about. Druckmann also stated in 2021 that Naughty Dog takes a long time to explore different ideas, whether it's going to be The Last of Us Part 3, whether it's something new, or whether there's some old franchise. Now about The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut, it seems from comicbook.com on January 11, 2022, their article reads that The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut is reportedly in the works at Naughty Dog and PlayStation. News of this director's cut version of The Last of Us Part 2 comes by the way of Tom Henderson, who is an often credible video game insider. In a recent message on Twitter, Henderson claimed that he has heard that The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut is coming at some point, but he stressed that he didn't know when. Now, Tom Henderson's tweet on January 5th, 2022 read, "Heard from multiple people now that The Last of Us remake is nearly finished and could release during the latter half of 2022. So that was true, and it did release in the latter half of 2022. With The Last of Us 2 multiplayer and Last of Us 2 director's cut, I've heard they are coming too, but I don't know exactly when or how. Them all releasing together could be a good compromise if God of War got delayed to 2023 in the first quarter, but that's just speculation on my end for the moment." Well, God of War Ragnarok wasn't delayed, and we got Part 1 remake in the second half of 2022. Now with the show releasing on January 15 or 16 depending on where you live, it makes sense that we could see the director's cut in 2023. Perhaps only we'll track the users playing The Last of Us 1 remake after the launch of the show, and then release Part 2 director's cut and also a bundle of both games. It's perfect timing this year for director's cut, with hopefully extended cutscenes, new weapons, upgradable assault rifles, skins, maybe new missions, or more likely extensions of current missions. But I think in terms of new gameplay or footage, it's more likely that we will get extensions of cutscenes rather than gameplay missions. Now, Neil Druckmann did mention some things about The Last of Us Part 3's game structure. Now, according to VGC, in a video interview with the Washington Post, Neil Druckmann was asked for his views on narrative storytelling in video games and how it had evolved over the years. Druckmann noted that while it could be argued that traditional video game narratives go back to the days of the 1980s video game adventure, he's currently more interested in the ways that some newer games tell their stories in a less direct manner. I'm more recently intrigued by stuff like Elden Ring and Inside that don't rely as much on traditional narrative to tell a story. I think some of the best storytelling in The Last of Us, yes, a lot of it is cinematics, but a lot of it is gameplay and moving around a space and understanding a history of a space by just looking at it and examining it. To me, that right now is some of the best joy I get out of games. Those that trust their audience to figure things out, that don't hold their hand. That's the stuff I'm really intrigued by going forward. It doesn't mean we will never have dialogues or cutscenes. I think those are tools in your toolbox, and it's about how to use all these different aspects. Some of it from other media, some of it as found notes and environmental storytelling. I think there's a way to push that stuff forward, at least for the kind of games we make at Naughty Dog. I'm really intrigued. Again, we're never resting on our laurels and trying something a little bit new, a little bit different that not everyone's gonna like, but that's okay. And again, it's stuff that we're working on now. I can tell you the teams are very excited by the different projects we have at Naughty Dog. Now, firstly, that's exactly what a lot of people wanted from the influence of Elden Ring, is that ability to explore and not be handheld to the next checkpoint and have that freedom to do what you want and find the things that are hidden away in the world. Also, the storytelling through the environment, through the world, and letting the things around you tell their own story. This isn't exactly new for Naughty Dog. They have already been doing this since The Last of Us Part 1, as I can recall. Many of us have seen the notes of Ish in the sewer area and different notes around The Last of Us world and discovering his story through notes. The environmental storytelling is also there with the broken cars, ambulances, where we can assume, just like in most zombie worlds, that there was a panic and a chaos before the apocalypse set. Also, the zombie in the house in Billstown, when we first get to see one of Bill's traps, we can hear something in a house where we can choose to go investigate in a tight quarters area, expecting someone or something to surprise us at any moment. I think it's good news, and I feel strongly that this would be amazing in an open world setting for The Last of Us Part 3, which again I made a full video about, but I think that will be the next step from open environments in The Last of Us Part 2. With The Last of Us Part 3 years and years away, I hope Part 3 is open world, where we can have more stories in the world, told through environments, and find new weapons, items, and just even narratives by exploring the world, alongside a deep main narrative told through a dialogue and cutscenes. Also, the fact that the team wants to push the technology and mechanics and try to do things differently excites me. At this point, the Last of Us franchise isn't like any other show or game. It's a game that takes a radically different direction in its main narrative. I don't think The Last of Us 2 story was the best, but it was very bold. And they could have gone the typical route, the traditional route, the expected route of another Joel and Ellie adventure, and they could have made that emotional, compelling, and had very high stakes. But that's not what excites the creator. He wants to go in a direction nobody expects, and I respect that. But I'm still one of those people who would have liked another Joel and Ellie game and Tommy and Joel game, a prequel game. I didn't enjoy The Last of Us Part 2 as much as the first. In fact, I hated it after completing it, but over time I respected it more and more. So literally anything could happen in Part 3, and it may be something we absolutely hate, but their gameplay and visuals are top notch, so I'm in no matter what. I love the series and I want more and more and more forever.